If you've ever tried a bunch of different diets and none of them have really quite settled well with you, or maybe one worked a little while and one didn't, and you're super confused, this is the episode for you. We're going to talk about metabolic typing and how it plays a role in weight loss and perimenopause. A simple test you can do at home to determine what your metabolic type might be and how to dive deeper into this so you can feel amazing and shed unwanted weight if that's what you're going for in perimenopause and beyond. Let's dive in.
What's up, sister? Welcome back to the Period Whisperer podcast, the show helping perimenopause and menopause women de-stress your body and decode what it's saying to you so you can own your own health, energy, and weight loss again. If you're new, I'm so happy you're here. I'm Bria. I'm your host, a recovering people pleaser and hustle addict turned functional and holistic hormone specialist. Let's lean in and learn what your body is saying to you.
Well, hey there, sister. How are you feeling in your body today? How's your food making you feel? Have you been someone who probably like me has tried many different ways of eating? Now, I'm a vegetarian and I've been a vegetarian for most of my life. So I can't say I have been able to try the full array of options out there, but I have definitely tried many things when it comes to maximizing my energy, when it comes to trying to put on muscle since I love fitness, when it comes to trying to just feel really good overall in my body, and certainly when it comes to trying to lose weight. And what I'm always forever amazed by is how you can look out into the world and hear all of these different ways of eating that are so different, right? When you think about like a very high meat, high animal protein diet like keto, for example, compared to a completely plant-based diet like vegan, those are really different ends of the spectrum. And we can absolutely look out into the world and do a Google search or head on over to Instagram and see proof that sometimes these things work for some people and sometimes they don't work for some people. And it just reinforces the fact that there is no one perfect way of eating, especially when it comes down to our macronutrients. That's a lot of what we're talking about here, right? We have three main macronutrients. We've got our fats, our carbohydrates, and our proteins. And it's the organization of these and the amounts of these that really come into play when we're thinking, okay, am I eating, this way or that way? And ultimately, as a woman, we want to figure out how to best eat for us, for our body, that makes our body feel its best. And never has there been a more important time for us to figure this piece out than perimenopause. And you hear me say this all the time, perimenopause really demands that we make changes and pay attention and hear what our body is saying. Because again, it's like walking on a suspension bridge all of a sudden. You're going through a transition in your life, and anything that isn't solid, that isn't working for you, is gonna make that bridge a lot shakier for you. And things are gonna fall through the cracks. And we don't want you to fall off the bridge. So we're trying to bring ourselves back to solid ground. And of course, when it comes to our health foundations, we have four huge pillars that no matter who you are, what you are, how you like to eat or not, you cannot avoid the fact that we need a quality sleep, we need quality nutrients, we need quality movement and exercise for our body, and we need quality stress management and pleasure. Those are the things. Now, what goes into those things is what's different. And of course, one of the most talked about pillars of health is nutrition. It's kind of shoved down our throats everywhere we go. And although I really like the fact that I can Google recipes really easily, that there's some amazing people out there that love cooking, that love making things look incredible and tasty. So I can do some research and figure out, a recipe, because I think that's one of the worst questions every day. What am I going to eat for dinner? What are we going to eat for dinner in the family? What's the family going to eat for dinner? Right? Like when it comes down to planning, that's one of the most frustrating things and time-sucking things and stressful things. And we're trying to eliminate stress. So when we bring it down to this particular particular pillar, that's what we're going to talk about in this episode. We're really going to dive into how to know the best food specifically for you, which might be different than some of the people in your family, and a simple thing that you can do at home to help give you some of that guidance. And of course, if this really resonates, how to dive deeper into it. And it all starts with a little thing that I'm shocked we don't know so much more about, and it's called metabolic typing or a metabolic type diet. It's how to eat for your specific metabolism. And we think metabolism, we also think like how we're burning, how our energy, like our basal metabolic burn, right? How many calories we're burning. That's the way I used to think of it anyway. This is how our cells actually oxidize nutrients inside of them. And it ranges, of course, because people range, but I'm going to try to keep it super simple on here because I like simple, I like metaphors, I like to make things make sense. So that's what I want to try to do for you today. So metabolic typing considers the fact that all humans have a genetic way that our cells specifically oxidize food and nutrients and energy inside of them. Some people are what we call fast oxidizers, which means they oxidize the nutrients inside really, really fast, turn it into energy really quickly. And some people are slow oxidizers. They do things really slowly. And of course, there's always those of us who are in the middle. I'm in the middle of these. On top of this, there's an entire other metabolic, typing thing to consider, which is really comes down to our autonomic nervous system. Are we parasympathetic, which is maybe a little bit more slow, versus sympathetic, which is again more fight or flight, more action, more busy. And we're always trying to bring, of course, everything back into the balance in the body. That's how we can establish a great feeling of energy, a great feeling of satiety, a great feeling of well-being when we eat food, so that we're feeling full and satisfied. We're still feeling energized, but not hyper, that our food does make us feel full and satisfied from breakfast to lunch to dinner through the night. And this is how, when we eat this way and we eat for our specific metabolic type, it can actually really play a massive role in how we feel in between meals, right? So if you've ever been someone who has always had loads of cravings, or someone who feels a bit nauseous after you eat something, there's obviously, we have blood sugar that plays a role into that. But if you've been pretty solid at going to bed and waking up and getting good quality sleep, if you have kind of your 3 meal times, if you've been consistent with those pieces, which really is around our blood sugar and our circadian rhythm, and you're still struggling with feeling full and satisfied between meals, or having enough energy to get to the next meal without having cravings or wanting to eat more, or not feeling hyper, not feeling too bogged down and sluggish, then metabolic typing is a really powerful thing to understand about yourself. And it really has blown my mind. It's something I do with all of my one-on-one clients to help understand and make sure that they're being set up for success. Because I will tell you, there have been so many times in my life where I have tried to, follow a certain way of eating. And, for example, when I eat all of that high protein and fat, I feel a bit sick and nauseous. That's me. Whereas some people, when they're eating a high protein, high fat diet, they feel amazing. Likewise, I have definitely met people who, are trying to eat plant-based, and then they end up with all these cravings. They're just always kind of hungry. So then they're constantly looking for more, plant-based foods, and land pretty deep into a more simple carbohydrate way of eating, because they're not getting what the body needs. And to try to bring it simply together, we can see in the world, when we go back into our ancestry, or even different parts of the world, we can see that there are cultures of people that thrive and live off of very high fat, high purine protein diets and do really, really well there. We can also see there are cultures that do really, really well off of more plant-based, more complex carbohydrates diet, and a lower protein, lower fat diet. So it's possible, but this is where our genetic coding comes in. And if you haven't found the perfect thing for you, that's because no one diet is right for everyone. And we want to look to our metabolic typing as like a revolutionary system that really addresses each person at a fundamental metabolic level, right? Allowing us to eat for increased energy, weight loss, and just, of course, greater resistance to disease, which is another really important piece, right? When we're in this transition of perimenopause, if we're not eating for our metabolic type, that's actually another stressor on the body. I'm sure you've heard me talk about, there are absolutely inflammatory and stress inducing foods, alcohol, processed sugar, processed flours, caffeine. A lot of those things we know bother everybody and just obviously bother everyone at different levels, but they're all inflammatory in their own right. But then of course we all have our own food sensitivities, right? Some people just are sensitive to dairy. Some people just are sensitive to certain, to nightshades, which are a type of, often a type of vegetable that can be irritating to specific guts. So we have those as well to consider. But at this age, we typically know, okay, we know what the inflammatory foods are. We often have already recognized in our life what our food sensitivities are. We stay away from some of those things. So now we want to take a look at how am I eating for my metabolic type? And in essence, if you do a test, if you do the metabolic type testing and you realize you're what we call a fast oxidizer, meaning inside your cells, your cells move really quick and they oxidize things fast. We want to make sure the macronutrients that you're feeding those cells are slower burning to bring some balance, right? Because if you're a fast oxidizer and you eat fast oxidizing food, then we're burn through it, and we can run out of energy, we can have blood sugar issues, we can feel unwell, we can always be hungry. On the other end of the spectrum, if you're a slow oxidizer, then you want to be looking at faster burning macronutrients like more complex carbohydrates, maybe more beans and legumes, lower purine proteins, things like that. We can get away with not as high of a protein because our body burns things a bit more slowly. So we want to have more more faster burning fuel to again bring us up to that great feeling. If you're a slow burning metabolizer and you eat slow burning fuel, like really high fat and high protein food, then I know for me, I can start to feel a little nauseous and sick. And just have tummy troubles and digestive issues. So even though we might be eating, quote unquote healthy food, it might not be right for our metabolic type. So the first step, of course, is always to, with your nutrition, regulate how you're eating. Okay, I want to make sure that I am eating 3 meals a day, and people talk so much about intermittent fasting, and there's so much value in fasting. But if you wake up and eat within 2 hours of waking, let's say you wake up at 6, you eat at 8 a.m., and then you eat lunch 4 to 5 hours after that. So we're eating at 12 or 1. And then we eat dinner 4 to 5 hours after that. We're eating at 5 or 6. From 6 p.m. until 8 a.m. when you eat the next day, that's a 14-hour fast. That's a long enough fast to get the benefits of fasting for most people. So especially when we're trying to maintain regular blood sugar levels, which is critical for women in the perimenopause and menopause age box. So 1, we want to make sure we've regulated our nutrition. 2, we want to make sure we're omitting those known inflammatory foods. So anything that we know bothers us, limiting or omitting caffeine, alcohol, sugar, conventionally raised dairy, processed flours, GMO corn and soy. Those ones can be big ones as well as eliminating any foods that you have a sensitivity to. So if you've eaten a lot of beans in the past and they bother you, they're probably not for you. If you eat, I don't know, there's lots of things that can be out there that can bug. If you eat nightshades and they bug you, we want to cut those out. If you eat broccoli and it gives you a lot of gas, maybe not the right thing for you. So once we've removed the inflammatory foods, we have our food regulated, then looking at our metabolic type is so valuable, because once we know what our oxidation type is and we start eating for that, some of the things I'm hearing from my clients in Midlife Mojo and my one-on-one clients is like, oh wow, I actually felt really good and energized from breakfast to lunch. I didn't even think about eating, or in the afternoon, like, oh, I didn't even have sugar cravings anymore. It's the craziest thing. I'm sleeping better at night. These are the things that happen when we're eating for our specific metabolic type. And it's so important to recognize this, because when we eat this way, we make it easier on us, right? We don't want to be white knuckling ourselves through like hunger cravings and starvation mode. That's not the way. That's always messages from our body that we're not getting what we need. Our food should keep us full and satisfied. So if you are eating 3 regular meals and you're not able to maintain energy, then we typically want to look at our food first and make sure that it's doing its job for us, for our unique metabolism and body. So, how do we get to do this? Now, you can definitely take an actual test, which really dives into more than just how you feel when you eat. When we're looking at the genetics around this, it has to do with your behaviors, it has to do with where you put on weight, it has to do with some of your actual physical features in your body to trace back to your, genetic makeup code in your heritage, in your background. So, that's a really cool and powerful thing. But I always think it's always, to me, this became really clear when I looked around the world and recognized that people put fat on in different parts of their bodies. They put muscle on more easily or harder in different parts of their bodies. Our bodies are shaped differently. Our backgrounds, our ancestors ate differently. When people are stressed out, some people lose weight really quickly. When some people are stressed out, they gain weight really quickly. All of this comes back down to our metabolic type. So once you understand this piece and start to look at this piece, yes, you can go online and you can take a really great test, but you can actually do a really simple thing at home to give you a quick understanding. Although I really prefer everyone to be eating their kind of 3 meals, especially until they're starting to release weight on their own, or until they've established like overall health and well-being in their 4 health pillars. We can get fancy after that, right? You want to try out some real fancy ways of eating and different things. That's fine, but let's make sure we have established a good foundation of health first. So assuming you're at the point where you are eating your 3 meals a day, you can take a day where maybe if you're starting to get hungry, in between a meal, maybe we're going to break that little, we're going to break up our break in between, and we're going to test something. And I want you to either have some meat, like some high purine meat, like maybe there's some leftover steak in your fridge, or have an orange. Either of those. Eat the orange or eat the meat, and then pay attention to how you feel about an hour after you eat. If you feel good and energized after that orange and like a pretty good sense of well-being, and then you make it until your dinner, let's say you had it in as an afternoon snack, you make it until your dinner, you're good to go. That is a good indicator that you are a slow oxidizer or a mixed oxidizer, and you do well with having fast oxidizing fuel like orange, like complex carbohydrates and lower purine proteins and vegetables, of course. If you feel kind of sick and jittery, or you're hungry right again, or irritated from that orange, then that's going to tell you that you're often more of a fast oxidizer. You burned through that really, really quickly, and now you need more. And the opposite, of course, is true if you do the meat. So it kind of depends on you. I mean, as a vegetarian, I'm always going to test with an orange. But if you have meat in the house and you want to give that a whirl, you can see how it feels. Does it make you feel a bit nauseous? Then maybe having a lower purine as a slow oxidizer is going to be better for you. If you feel really great after you eat that piece of meat and you're good and solid until dinner, then that is a good indicator that you're a fast oxidizer. These are just a quick test that you can do at home that I think is fun and simple. But if you're really wanting to dive into this and understand how your body oxidizes food, so that you can take your energy and your weight loss results to the next level, and know that you're really supporting your body as you walk on this suspension bridge of perimenopause, then I want to encourage you to reach out, apply for one of my one-on-one coaching spots. If doing the MT test is a great option for you and diving in and creating a plan, we can do that through a hormone healing analysis. Or you can learn more about this in the Perimenopause Posse. We talk about these things on our monthly training calls on how to customize this stuff for you. So if you're self-paced, if you're looking for something just to kickstart you and get you going, and you like being a part of a community, swipe up and join us in the Perimenopause Posse. We have live trainings. There's a great course in there. We have monthly trainings, monthly nutrition plans to help support you in that, and a great group of women. Or if you're really ready to dive into your own hormonal chaos or your own metabolic typing, I want you to apply for one of my exclusive one-on-one coaching programs, or at least hop on a free call with me so we can see what the best path is for you. All right, sisters, go out. Now that you know about your body, be more in your life, take action, and not just less on a scale. We'll catch you in the next episode.
Thank you so much for joining me on the Period Whisperer podcast. If you liked this episode, take 30 seconds right now to write a review on iTunes, and then reach out to me directly on Instagram at Bria_period_whisperer and message me there with a screenshot of your review. As a thank you, I will give you a customized free hormone audit to get you on your way to the best health of your life in midlife.